Hello students, welcome back. This is Ms. Mercado speaking. We are starting a brand new chapter. This week we are covering chapter 6, which deals with analyzing and journalizing payroll. This is the last chapter we're going to be covering. The information covered in this chapter, or some of the calculations that we're going to be doing, have been cumulative. So whatever was learned from chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will apply to chapter 6 and so on. Okay, so it's very important that you are very familiar with all of the content covered in chapter 1 through 5. Okay, if you did not grasp the contents, you're gonna have to go back and review, because it's very important that we understand where we're getting this information. Some of the calculations that are being done, they're not being explained because they have been explained in prior chapters. Okay, so this particular chapter deals with recording payroll in a payroll register and posting the information into various employees' earnings records. We're going to identify the various deductions, both voluntary and involuntary. These can be any taxes or garnishments that are taken out of the employee's gross pay. So a lot of you, whenever you get your paycheck, you see a whole bunch of taxes being deducted. If you pay child support and your wages are being garnished, then you see that deduction for your child support there as well. Or maybe you have a debt that was not collected, and they went ahead and they garnished your wages, maybe for your student loans. There's for creditors. There's so many things that can be deducted from your paychecks. So we're going to go ahead and analyze some of those transactions. We're going to learn how to journalize the entries to record both the payroll and the payroll taxes. Okay, so the payroll is mainly what we, the employees, get paid. So your employer is responsible for calculating how much you should get paid, deducting all of your deductions, all of the taxes, maybe health care, anything that you have to, that needs to be deducted from your paycheck, and then handing you a check for the difference. Okay. On top of that, your employer also has a responsibility to pay for payroll taxes. Okay, for having you as an employee. So there's two entries that go side by side that need to be recorded every time payroll is run, and we'll go through those today. We're going to post to various general ledgers. We're going to explain the recording of the payroll taxes deposits and the need of end of period adjustments. Okay, it's very important that before you begin working on chapter 6 assignments, that you read chapter 6 entirety. I recommend you read it at least twice, and when you're reading, you're analyzing carefully all of the different illustrations, examples, tables that they include, so you can have a better understanding of what is going on. Okay, so I am not going to cover in detail the content of chapter 6. I'm going to focus on covering 3 of the problems that you're going to be seeing in your homework assignment. These are the problems that I think are a little bit more complicated, so that's why I selected them to cover them with you today. So I'll be covering 3 of the problems that you have for homework, and hopefully along with the additional resources that Cengage offers and the textbook, you'll be able to complete the rest of your problems. Okay, so I also wanted to highlight, before I jump into the problems, that at the end of the chapter there's a summary of accounts used in recording payroll transactions. And I really wanted to show you this because what it basically does, it basically gives you a list of all of the accounts that we're going to be using, or that we could potentially be using when we record our payroll or tax transactions. And then it explains to you what should be posted to each of these accounts. Okay, I'm not going to go through every account with you, but just know that this information is available on section 6.9 of your ebook towards the very end, and it's called Summary of Accounts Used. And I really recommend that you read over this. That way you know what information goes into each of the accounts. Okay, so I just wanted to put that information out there. That way you could familiarize yourself. There's so many accounts that are going to be included. So it's important to, we have a lot of payable accounts. And the reason we have a lot of payable accounts is because we're putting money into a temporary account, which is a payable account. It's basically being put on hold. And then when the time comes where we need to pay out these taxes, we just grab the money out of the payable and submit payment to the different taxing entities. Okay, so all we're doing is we are paying our employees, and we're doing the bookkeeping task of calculating how much should they make and how much should be deducted from their paychecks, and then cutting a check to them for the difference. Now, all of the deductions that were taken out, whether it be for child support, for taxes, for anything, for unemployment, whatever the case might be, is being put into payable accounts, and every account needs to have their own individual payable account. Okay, that's why we have so many. Okay, so it just depends what kind of tax. For example, FICA is broken down between OASDI and HI. We have FUTA, we have SUTA, we have federal income tax, state income tax, union dues payable, wages payable, vacations payable. So all of these are accounts that we use and we throw in money that later needs to be paid out for whatever purpose. So I just recommend that you go out there and you review this information. That way you become familiar with all of the accounts. Okay, now I'm going to jump right into problem solving. The first problem that I'm working on is problem 6.4 of your textbook, 6.4a. Okay, you'll be seeing something similar to this on your homework. Okay, so this one reads: the employees of Donnelly Music Company earned total wages of $4,690 during January. The total amount is taxable under FICA, FUTA, and SUTA. Okay, the state contribution rate for the company is 3.6%. The amount withheld for federal income tax is $685. We are being asked two things. The first thing is to journalize the payment of the monthly wages, and we'll do that up here, the payment of the wages. And we're also being asked to record the payroll taxes, okay? So let's clarify. The payment of the monthly wages, this is how much we are calculating. How much are we going to pay our employees? Well, first of all, how much did our employees earn? How much are we going to deduct from our employees' paychecks? And how much are we going to pay them in cash? Okay? And when we mean cash, we don't actually mean cash. We're going to cut them a check or direct deposit, whatever the case may be. But our cash account is being affected because we're actually giving out money. We're paying our employees, okay? So whether you cut a check or you direct deposit, cash is being deducted from the company's records because we are paying our employees, okay? So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate the payment of wages, okay? It says here that our employees earned wages of $4,690. This represents how much money our employees earned gross. This is before deductions. This is how much they worked in hours, and this is how much we calculated that we or our employees earned in wages, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to debit our wages account, okay? And the amount will be $4,690. That is the amount of the total earnings for our employees. Now, it doesn't tell us how many employees we have, none of that. It doesn't give us any detail. It just tells us that we have employees and we paid them that amount. So we're going to run with that. Now, your textbook just uses the account wages. Let me see, what do they have over here? You see, they have wages and salaries, and it says an operating expense account in which the gross payroll is recorded. So if an employee gets paid by wages, we'll use wages. If they're on salary, then we'll use salaries. Now, I've done payroll before, and where I used to work previously, our account was called wages expense. That way we could clearly identify it was an expense to the company, okay? In this textbook, they just call it wages. So I'm going to run with that because that's what they're giving you. But this is an expense account. This is, we are recording in the company's records that we spend $4,690 in wages, okay? Wages expense is an expense account, and the normal balance is a debit, okay? Now, we have to figure out how much am I going to deduct out of my employees' paychecks for the different taxes. And they're saying that we're going to be responsible for FICA, FUTA, and SUTA, okay? So, let's start with FICA, okay? FICA has two taxes. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the money in FICA taxes payable. So we're taking money out of the employee's paycheck and we're putting it into a payable account. When we are getting ready to pay for our FICA taxes, all we need to do is take the money out of my payable account and cut a check, okay? Now, the taxes are broken down by category. The first FICA tax that we have is OASDI. And let me make this a little bit bigger. That way I can put my calculations in here. Hopefully you all can see this, okay? So, I'll put my calculations right next to them, okay? So, FICA taxes payable is a liability account, okay? That's a temporary, or it's an account that we use to remit payment at a future time. Payable. We need to pay someone at a later time this money. Okay? It does not belong to us. All we're doing is we're keeping it or setting it aside so we can remit payment at a later time. Okay? So, how are we going to calculate this? Well, we know that our employees earned $4,690. And from prior chapters, we know that the FICA OASDI rate is 6.2%. Okay? You should already know that from prior chapters. Okay? So we need to run the calculation. Let me get my calculator out. 4690 times 6.2%. That's going to give me 290.78. Okay? The next I have is Fica Taxes Payable, but this time we're doing HI. Okay? Now, once again, you have to refer to prior chapters. How do I calculate my HI tax? Well, it's your wages, 4690, times the rate of 1.45%. Okay? So once again, I'm going to get my calculator, and I'm going to do 4690 times 1.45%. And that gives me 68.005. Now be very careful. We're going to round that up because this is the third digit is a 5. I'm going to round out to 68.01. Okay? Now, anytime you see a payable, you're putting money into the account, you are going to credit it. When you are taking money out of the account, then you would debit it. In this case, we're taking money out of the employee's paycheck and we're putting it into each of these payable accounts. Okay. The next thing we deduct from our employees' paychecks is federal income taxes. Okay. This is your federal withholding. Okay. So we have employees' federal income tax payable. Okay. Now, here I'm just going to put a little note. Now, they went ahead and they gave you the amount. Federal income taxes, $685. So I'm going to put that this is given. That way you know that I didn't calculate it. It was given in the problem. So they've calculated that the employees are going to be withheld $685 of federal. Okay. What else do we have? That is it. Okay. FUTA and SUTA employees do not pay. SUTA, the state unemployment, some of them might, some of them might not. In this case, they're not paying for SUTA taxes. Only the employer is paying for that. The only thing the employee is going to get deducted is for their FICA, OASDI and HI, and their federal income taxes. Okay. So now we need to figure out how much cash am I going to pay. Okay, and this should be indented. The credits should be indented a little bit here, just so we can differentiate our debits from our credits. Okay. Now, how much cash am I gonna pay my employees? Okay. How much are you gonna cut the checks out for? Well, I know that my employees earned $46.90. I'm gonna subtract the $290.78 that I'm gonna take out for OASDI. I'm going to subtract the $68.01 for HI, and I'm going to subtract the $685 for federal income tax. So the amount that I'm going to pay in actual cash or in check to my employees is $36.46.21. So when you're doing your calculations, make sure that your debits equal your credits. Since I have Excel here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pardon these pop-ups. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add my debit column and I'm gonna add my credit column. Okay? And they should equal. If they don't equal, then you made a mistake somewhere. Okay? So you see, this is my totals. Whenever I'm using Excel, I like to run my totals down. That way I know that my debits equal my credits. Okay? So you don't have to do this, but I highly recommend that you do, just to make sure that you did your transactions and the amounts are correct. Okay? Now, that is the first entry that we need to do. The second entry is to record the payroll taxes. Okay? Now, these are the taxes that the employer has to pay for having you as an employee. Okay? So, I'm going to have an account called payroll taxes. Okay? I don't know how much that is. Okay? This is an expense account. I know that it's going to be a debit, but I don't know how much taxes it is. So I'm going to leave that blank for now. I'm not going to put a number there. Now, I need to calculate the taxes that my employer is liable for. Okay? I know that the employer is liable for FICA taxes payable, OASDI. Okay? Now, we've already covered this, that the employee pays 6.2%, the employer pays 6.2% for OASDI. For HI, the employee pays 1.45, the employer pays 1.45. Okay? So they're matching. Okay? So my FICA taxes payable for OASDI, it'll be $46.90 times 6.2%. Okay? And we've already done the calculation up here. It's the same. So the amount will be the same of $290.78. Okay? The employer also has to pay for FICA taxes payable for HI. Okay? And once again, it'll be the $46.90 times the HI rate is 1.45%. And we've calculated that up here for 6801. So we just bring that number down to save us some time. That way we don't have to run the calculations again. Okay. Now, the employer is responsible to pay for federal unemployment taxes. Okay. So, my federal unemployment taxes payable. Let's see what it says. The total amount is taxable under FICA, FUTA, and SUTA. Okay, from prior chapters, we know that the FUTA rate, the federal unemployment rate, is 0.6%. Okay, I believe that was covered. Let me see. Let me get my book here. That was covered in Chapter 5. So please refer to Chapter 5 that deals with unemployment. By now, you should know that the standard FUTA tax is 0.6%. That's the 6% minus the discount that they're given, okay? So we're going to get the $46.90 times the 0.6%. And let's see what that gives us. Okay? $46.90 times 0.6%. That gives me $28.14. Okay? And we also have to pay state unemployment tax, okay, SUTA. The state contribution rate is 3.6%. That's given to you in the problem, okay? So we're going to get the amount of wages, which is $46.90, times 3.6%, okay? Let's see what that gives us. $46.90 times 3.6%. That gives me $168.84. Okay. So these are the taxes, the 4 taxes that the employer is responsible to pay. They have to pay the OASDI, the HI, the federal unemployment tax, and the state unemployment tax. Okay. So now that I've got my 4 figures calculated, I can figure out the total of my payroll taxes. So I'm going to add those 4 amounts, $290.78. Plus 6801 plus 2814 and 168.84. That gives me 555.77. Okay. Once again, when I'm done, I just verify that my debit column equals my credit column. Okay. I need to make sure that my debits equal my credits. Okay. So I add all of the information on my debit column and on my credit column, okay? And sure enough, the amount is the same, $555.77. I'm going to add that. So you see, my debits equal my credits, my debits equal my credits. The top portion calculates is the entry for your wages, how much was earned, and the deductions for the employees. Then the bottom is, what is the employer's responsibility? Well, they're responsible to pay payroll taxes that include OASDI, HI, FUTA, and SUTA. Okay? So these are the entries that would have to happen to identify the payment of monthly wages and payroll taxes. Okay? Okay, moving along, we're going to follow with problem 65A. Volcker has a semi-monthly payroll of $67,000. So we pay various employees a total of $67,000 as of September the 15th. The total payroll is taxable under Fica Taxes. For HI purposes, $63,850 is taxable under Fica Taxes OASDI. And remember, there are limits for the OASDI, so that's why not all of it is taxable. And $10,300 is taxable under FUTA and SUTA. The state contribution rate for the company is 4.1%. The amount withheld for federal income taxes is $99.11. The amount withheld for state income taxes is $14.10. Letter A. Journalize the payment of the wages and record the payroll taxes on September the 15th. Okay? So we have to do the entry for the payment of the wages and the payroll taxes as of September 15th. Okay? So let's start off here with the first account. Okay? So what do we need to do? So we're going to record our wages. Okay? How much did our employees earn? Well, the problem says that your employees made $67,000. That is how much your wages expense is. $67,000. Okay? Now we need to deduct the FICA taxes and put them into our payable account. FICA taxes payable, OASDI, and that is going to be calculated. Now, be very careful. It says FICA taxes payable OASDI. If you look here on the first slide, it says the total payroll is taxable under FICA taxes. That means that the total payroll of $67,000 is taxable for HI purposes. Now, for FICA taxes OASDI, only $63,850 is taxable. Okay? So not all of the wages are taxable. We have some of the employees that already went over the cap, so we're not going to pay taxes on that amount. So they've already done all those calculations, and they've said, you know what, out of the $67,000 that your employees earn, only $63,850 is taxable for OASDI purposes. So I'm going to get the $63,850, and I'm going to multiply times my OASDI rate of 6.2%. Okay? And let's see what that gives us. 63,850 times 6.2%. That's 39,5870. Okay. Now, the next thing we have to deduct from our employee's paycheck is the FICA taxes, but this time for HI. Now for HI purposes, it says the total payroll is taxable under FICA taxes HI. But what is my total payroll? My total payroll is $67,000. I'm going to multiply by my HI rate of 1.45%. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, that gives me $971.50. The total payroll is taxable under, we've got FICA. $10,300 is taxable under FUTA and SUTA. So in this particular problem, taxes are being withheld for federal and state unemployment. That's for the employer. Now it also says the state contribution rate is 4.1%. Okay, now here we go. The amount withheld for federal income taxes. Okay. That's another deduction that needs to be done for the employee's paycheck. So we're going to have employees, federal income tax payable. Okay. Now, the amount to be withheld for federal income taxes is $99.11. That is given. Okay, so I'm going to just put here given. That way you don't figure it out. That is calculated, and the amount is $99.11. The amount withheld for state income taxes is 1410. Okay, so now we're going to have employees, state income tax payable, and then there is also given. The amount was provided to you. You don't have to do any calculations, and the amount is 1410. Now we can calculate how much cash are we actually going to pay out to our employees. Well, our employees earn $67,000. I'm going to deduct the OASDI of $39,580.70. I'm going to deduct the HI of $971.50. I'm going to deduct the federal income tax of $99.11. And I'm going to deduct the state income tax of $14.10. So the amount that I'm going to pay in cash to my employees is $50,748.80. Okay. Now I want to make sure that my debits equal my credits. This is just for me verifying. I don't want to do a mistake and then not catch it. Okay. And yes, my debits equal my credits of $67,000. Okay. Now we have to do our payroll entries. Okay. What is the employer responsible to pay in taxes? Well, the employer has to pay Fica taxes. Okay, before we do that, these are my payroll taxes. We're going to fill that in later. Okay, and then I'm going to put my Fica taxes payable. And that's your $63,850. Sorry, $63,850 at 6.2%. Okay. And we already ran the calculation up here, so I'm just going to bring it down. $39,580.70. Let me put an extra zero here. Okay. We also have to pay Fica taxes payable, HI. Okay. And we calculated it up here. That's on the full amount of the wages of $67,000 times 1.45%. And that gave us $971.50. We calculated it up there. We don't need to run the calculations again. Same numbers. Okay. Now the employer has to pay the federal and state unemployment, FUTA, taxes payable. Okay. For that, it gives you here that the amount taxable for FUTA and SUTA purposes is $10,300. So we're gonna get the $10,300, and I'm gonna multiply by my FUTA rate of 0.6%. Let's see what that gives us. That gives me $61.80. Okay. And last but not least, we have our SUTA taxes payable. Okay. And once again, that's $10,300. Why is it $10,300? Because it says here that $10,300 is taxable for FUTA and SUTA. Okay? And it tells me that my SUTA rate is 4.1%. So let's get our calculator out. And that's going to be 10,300 times 4.1%. That's going to give me $422.30. Okay. Now I need to figure out the total of my taxes. So because I am using Excel, I'm just going to get the sum of those four amounts right there. That gives me $5,414.30. So what you need to do is you need to add the total of your taxes. All of your credits, you add them together, and that is going to represent the amount of your payroll taxes right there. Okay. So now I just want to verify that my debits equal my credits. I'm going to add my debit column And I'm going to add my credit column right here. And sure enough, we are in balance. Okay. Okay. Now, the second part of the requirement says, assume that the employee Sepulchra must also pay state contributions disability insurance of 1% on the taxable payroll of $62,100, and that the employee's contributions are to be deducted by the employer. So they're asking us to journalize the September 15th payment of wages, assuming that the state contributions of the employees are kept in a separate account. Okay, so now they're asking us to recalculate the amount of the payroll entries. Okay, these are my monthly entries over here. So they're asking us to recalculate. Okay. Now everything is going to stay basically the same. Okay. My wages continue to be $67,000. I have to pay OASDI. I have to pay HI. I have to pay federal income tax, and I have to pay state income tax. All of this I can copy and paste over. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste it down here. That does not change. Okay. Now, there's one thing that does change. The employee is having to pay disability insurance. That's one more deduction that needs to happen. Okay. So, I'm going to have here an account called Employees Disability Contributions Payable. Okay. And how are we going to calculate that? Well, it says that the payroll that is taxable for this purpose is $62,100, and we are responsible to pay 1%. Okay. So let's see what that gives us. Okay. So let's get our calculators out. That's 62,100 times 1%. That gives me $621. It's going to be deducted for employees' disability contribution. Okay? So everything else stayed the same from the first part, because you're still responsible to pay for OASDI, for HI, for federal and for state income tax. They just wanted you to add one more component, which is this component right here. Now we need to figure out how much cash am I going to pay my employees. Okay? Oh, sorry about that. Oh, God. There we go. So, how much cash am I going to pay my employees? Well, I know that my employees earn $67,000 in wages. I'm going to subtract $39.58.70 that was withheld for OASDI, $971.50 withheld for HI, $99.11 was withheld for federal income tax, $14.10 was withheld for state income tax, and $621 was withheld for the employee's disability. So the amount that I'm going to pay my employees is $50,127.80. Now, why is cash being credited? If you all recall from your accounting course, cash is an asset account. Sorry about that. Where did it go? Let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so cash is an asset account. Its normal balance is a debit. Anytime you deposit money into the account, you debit. Anytime you take money out of the account, you credit. I am taking money out of my bank account to pay my employees. How much am I going to pay my employees? Well, they earned $67,000, but they had several deductions. So at the end of the day, I'm going to pay my employees $50,127.80. Okay? That is the amount that I'm going to cut my check out for, okay, or my checks, because this is for multiple employees. Okay? So make sure that after you're done, your debits and your credits equal. Very important that you stay in balance, and they do. Okay. So that is the second requirement. In the second requirement, they're only asking us to do the entry for our payment of the monthly wages. Okay, how much do we need to deduct from our employee's paycheck? And this is what we're calculating here. So we started off with 67,000 gross. This is my gross pay. And then the 50,127, that is the net pay. That is after deductions. Okay? So that is the second problem that I'm going to be covering. Okay. Now we have our third and final problem that I will be covering in this particular video. So it says Kip Bowman is the owner and sole employee of KB Corporation. He pays himself a salary of $1,500, okay, each week. Okay, so they give you here some tax information, which you should know by now. They give you the rate for OASDI, for HI. They're telling you that you're going to withhold $232 for federal income tax. The state income tax is 22% of the federal income tax withheld. The federal unemployment tax is 0.6% on the first 7,000. The state unemployment tax is 0.05 of the first 14,000. In addition, they're going to deduct 3% of each paycheck for the 401k, your retirement contribution. You're getting garnished $100 per paycheck for child support, and you're paying $95 for health insurance. Okay? They're asking us to record the payroll entry and the payroll tax entry for the pay week ending June the 7th. Okay? So they have a lot of information here. Do not get overwhelmed. Same process that we've been doing the last two problems. Okay? The first thing we have here is we have our wages expense. Now, this particular employee, it says here that he is the sole owner of the company, and he pays himself a salary of $1,500. Okay, so here you can have salaries. Okay, because this is a salary. Remember, if you go to your account, it can be wages and salaries, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm going to keep it consistent with that, and I'm just going to do wages and salaries as the account. You can just do salaries expense. I don't know what options you're going to be given in Cengage, but it's either wages expense or salaries expense. Okay, or maybe there's an account that has wages and salaries expense. It's just either or. Because I just wanted to emphasize, because they mentioned here that it's a salary, I want to make sure I put that it's a salary. Okay, so I'm just going to put wages and salaries expense here. Okay, and the amount that I'm paying myself, in this case, I'm Kip Bowman. I'm paying myself $1,500. I have a business, and I'm the only employee in that business. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the deductions. Okay, we have Fica Taxes Payable. This is for OASDI, and we calculate that by getting our $1,500, and they are so kind, they give you the rate right here, 6.2%. Okay, now remember, there is a cap. We only pay taxes for OASDI purpose on the first $132,900. So just to be on the safe side, okay, he pays himself $1,500 a week. There's 52 weeks, so that means that he's going to get paid $78,000 a year, which is below my cap. So I don't have to worry about exceeding my cap. Okay, so I'm comfortable there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to calculate the $1,500 times my 6.2%, and that's going to give me $93. So I'm going to deduct $93 for OASDI. Okay. Now I'm going to do my HI. Okay. And it's going to be $1,500 times 1.45%. Okay. And the 1.45% is provided to you in the problem. So we're going to get our calculators. 1,500 times 1.45%. That's $21.75. Okay. We also going to deduct employees federal income tax payable. Okay. This is a federal income tax. It's going to be deducted from your paychecks. And for the federal federal income tax, they're giving it to you. So I'm going to put here given. That way you know that that's not calculated. That's given in the problem. And the amount that they recorded was $232. Okay. And put this. Right there. So we can see our decimals, okay? So, 232. We also have employee state income tax. Now, remember, not all states have state income tax. Texas does not have it, but there are some states that do, okay? Now, for this one, they're telling you that the state income tax is 22% of the federal income tax withheld. The federal income tax withheld was 232. So it'll be your 232 times the 22%. Okay? So let's get a calculator. So it's $232 times 22%. That's going to be $51.04. You also have a retirement plan, okay? It's not required, but some people have it. So we have retirement plan contribution payable. Okay? And it's 3% of your pay. Your pay is $1,500, and we're taking out 3% for your retirement. Okay? So that's going to be 1,500 times 3%. That's going to be $45 that is being withheld for your 401k. Okay? You're also being garnished $100 per paycheck for your child support. So here I'm going to put garnishment payable. Okay? And the amount is given at $100. So I'm going to put here given. Okay? Wow, this person is getting deducted a lot. Okay? This person also is paying for health insurance, and that's $95 a pay period. Okay? So we have health insurance premium payable, and that is given at $95 right here, $95. So this employee makes $1,500, okay, who happens to be the owner of the business. He pays himself $1,500. We're going to pay for OASDI taxes. That's going to be withheld from the employee's paycheck. HI taxes is going to be withheld. Federal income tax is going to be withheld. State income tax is going to be withheld. The 401k is going to be withheld. The child support garnishment is going to be withheld, and the health insurance is going to be held. Now we can figure out how much are we actually going to pay him. So the $1,500 is my gross pay. Now we're going to calculate our net pay. How much are they actually taking home to spend? Okay, so very easy. You're going to get your calculator. You get the $1,500 that this employee earned, and you're going to subtract all of the deductions. Okay. So you subtract all of your deductions to be able to calculate your net pay. So that's $862.21. Wow. So they get paid $1,500 and they only take home $862.21. Okay. Welcome to the real world. Okay, that's what happens with all of our paychecks nowadays. You know, we make a pretty significant amount, and then all of these taxes and deductions that we have, they leave us with almost half of the paycheck only. Okay, so that is our first entry for our wages. Okay, our payment for our monthly wages. Now, the employer also has to pay payroll taxes. Okay, there's two taxes that have to be paid here, and the only ones that they include are the they don't include no, they don't. Okay. In this case, the only deductions that they're doing for payroll taxes are, let me see. Okay, here it is. Okay. Now, we have to be careful. Look at this last entry, this last sentence here. Record the payroll entry and the payroll taxes for the pay week ended June the 7th. Year to date, this person, Bowman, has earned $31,500. Now, under payroll taxes, there's 4 things that the employer has to pay. OASDI, HI, your federal unemployment, and your state unemployment. Now, federal unemployment, we only pay taxes on the first $7,000 of earnings. How much has this employee earned? Well, this employee has already earned $31,500. So I don't have to pay any more federal unemployment tax. Okay? State unemployment, we only pay state unemployment on the first $14,000. This employee has already earned $31,500. So because we've already exceeded that $14,000 cap, we will not have to pay any more state unemployment. So that is the reason that we are not including federal or state unemployment, because the employee has already earned or surpassed those caps. Right now, the employee has made $31,500, way over what the federal and state unemployment limits are. Okay, so that is why we are not paying any of those 2 taxes. But regardless of that, the employer has to pay for OASDI and HI. Okay. And that is going to be our 1,500 times our 6.2%. And we've already calculated it up here. 1,500 times 6.2%. That gives me $93. Okay. And then the employer also has to pay FICA taxes, payable, HI, that's going to be 1,500 times 1.45%. Okay. And we calculated that up there, and that came out to $21.75. Okay. So the amount that the employer is responsible to pay in payroll taxes is the sum of those 2. So we get our calculator. So it's $93 plus $21.75. That's $114.75. That's my payroll tax expense. Okay. So basically, this is how much it cost me to have this employee. Okay, I'm having to pay these 2 taxes for now for this employee. Now remember, on your homework, this amount might be less. Okay, so be very careful when you're doing your homework problem. Look at this number right here, okay? And look at the limits. You are responsible to pay federal unemployment tax on the first $7,000, okay? So let's assume that this employee had made $5,000. You would have to pay federal unemployment tax because you haven't reached the $7,000 limit, okay? The same thing for state unemployment. You would have to pay because you haven't reached the limit. Always compare your limits to how much the employee has earned. If you're above the limits, then you don't pay. If you're below the limits, then you are responsible to pay those taxes. And federal and state unemployment tax go under payroll taxes. Up here, the only thing that include up here are the deductions for each of the employees. The employees are responsible to pay OASDI, HI, federal income tax, state income tax, and then all of the other deductions, like they have retirements, any garnishments, health insurance, dental, short-term disability, vision care, anything, any other deductions, they go up here, okay? That's the responsibility of the employee, okay? And then you calculate, you subtract your wages and salaries expense minus all of your deductions to give you your net pay. This is how much you're taking home and spending, okay? So, those are the 3 problems that I'm covering today. Please, please, please make sure that you read the chapter carefully. You review the different demonstration problems. If you have any questions as you're working your assignments, please either post a discussion on Blackboard so that way your classmates can help you out, or send me a Blackboard message, and I'll be more than glad to help you out. Okay? So until next time, please take care of yourself, and we see you next time when we cover the last, basically the last lecture that we will be covering homework 6B. Okay? So that is it for today. Until next time.